On the day my ex-wife married the same man who helped destroy our marriage, I showed up without warning. I walked into that reception like I belonged there, asked for the microphone, and for a second her face went pale. She thought I came to make a scene. I didn't. I leaned in and said one sentence, calm and clear. Today I'm here to give you the gift you demanded in the divorce. The room went silent. No music, no clinking glasses. Even the people who didn't know me could feel something shift in the air. I stepped forward, placed a thick envelope on the table in front of them, and set a USB drive right on top, slow enough for everyone to see it. Her new husband's smile faded. Her hands tightened around her bouquet. She tried to laugh, but nothing came out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just looked around the room and said, "Everything you ever wanted is in there." And then I let the silence do the rest. If you want the full story of what was inside that envelope and why their world collapsed the moment I walked away, subscribe to this channel now. You don't want to miss what happens next. The parking deck at Grady always smelled like old concrete and disinfectant. I'd been there so many times the last few months that I knew which elevator was slow and which stairwell didn't feel safe after dark. That night, I stayed longer than I planned. My mother had fallen again. Nothing dramatic, no blood, no ambulance, just that quiet kind of scare that makes you realize your parents don't bounce back the way they used to. She kept apologizing from the hospital bed like she'd done something wrong. "Baby, I'm fine. I don't want you worrying." "Ma, I'm not worried," I told her, even though my stomach was tight the whole time. "I'm just here." She reached for my hand. Her skin felt papery, warm, familiar. I sat there until her eyes got heavy. Then I fixed the blanket around her shoulders, grabbed my jacket, and walked out like I always did, slow, steady, like the world wasn't shifting under my feet. In the car, I checked the time and thought about my daughter, 12 years old, and she still liked when I picked up her favorite chicken tenders on a hard day. I promised I'd be home for her math homework. Danielle was supposed to handle dinner. That was the arrangement, at least on paper. Traffic back toward Decatur moved better than I expected. I pulled into our street earlier than normal, the kind of early that should have felt like a small win. Work had been heavy. Life had been heavy. A quiet house would have been a gift. The porch light was on. A car I didn't recognize sat in the driveway, parked too comfortably, angled like it belonged there. Black sedan, clean, tinted windows. No attempt to hide. No, I'm just stopping by energy. My hands stayed on the steering wheel longer than they needed to. I stared at the car, waiting for my brain to come up with an innocent explanation. Maybe a neighbor, maybe a contractor, maybe my mind was tired. Then I saw the shoes. A man's shoes by the front door. Expensive, polished, not mine. I shut the car off and walked up the steps anyway. Didn't slam the door, didn't stomp, didn't even breathe loud. The key felt colder than usual in my palm. Inside, laughter carried from the living room. Danielle's laugh. A man's voice underneath it. I stepped in. Grant sat on the couch like he'd done it 100 times. One arm stretched across the back cushion. Danielle stood near the kitchen island, holding a glass of wine like it was some normal Tuesday. My daughter Nia sat at the dining table with her workbook open, pencil frozen in her hand. Her eyes lifted to me, then dropped back down so fast it was like she'd been trained to disappear. Danielle didn't even flinch. She just looked at me, head tilted. "Why are you home early?" she said. Not "hey." Not "is your mom okay?" Not even surprise. Just that question, like I'd broken a rule by walking into my own house. My throat tightened. 1,000 words showed up and none of them felt safe. Grant smirked, real small, like he'd been waiting to see what I'd do. Nia's pencil made a faint scratch across the paper, a nervous line that didn't belong to any math problem. I didn't raise my voice, didn't ask who he was, even though I knew. Didn't demand explanations, even though my chest felt like it had a weight on it. Instead, I set my keys down on the entry table, slow, deliberate, and looked at Danielle. "Nia," I said, keeping my tone calm, "go to your room for a minute." She hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Danielle, then back to me. Danielle's mouth tightened like she didn't like me giving instructions. Nia stood anyway, chair scraping softly against the floor, and walked down the hall without a word. Her shoulders were stiff, like she was carrying the shame for all three of us. Danielle took a sip of wine. Grant leaned back further. "You don't get to order people around," Danielle said. A small part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to throw something. Mostly, I just felt tired. Bone deep, grown man tired. The kind you can't fix with sleep. "Who is he?" I asked finally. Grant answered before she could. "My name's Grant," he said, like he was introducing himself at a barbecue. "Danielle said you were cool." Danielle shot him a look that wasn't a warning. It was irritation, like he'd spoken out of turn. She turned back to me. "Don't do this," she said. "Not tonight. Not tonight." Like there was a better night to watch your marriage fall apart in front of your kid. My jaw clenched hard enough to hurt. Fingers curled at my side. I kept them there. Kept my face neutral. That was always my role. Stay controlled, stay reasonable, stay quiet, so everybody else could stay comfortable. Grant stood up, slow, not threatening exactly, but not respectful either. "Look, man," he said, "you don't gotta make it weird." Danielle nodded along, as if he'd said something wise. Something inside me shifted. Not rage, not panic, just clarity. I turned toward the hallway and listened for my daughter's door to close. When it did, the sound was soft, but it landed heavy. Danielle followed my eyes. "She's fine," she said quickly. "Stop acting like you're the only parent in this house." I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time it hit me that my silence hadn't been protecting my family. It had been protecting her ability to do whatever she wanted without consequence. I didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't threaten. I walked past them, picked up my work bag from the chair, then went into the bedroom and pulled out a folder with my mother's paperwork. The same folder I'd meant to grab before heading back out. The one reason I'd come home early. When I stepped back into the hallway, Danielle was still standing there, arms crossed, watching me like I was the one making a scene. "Where are you going?" she asked. I stopped by the front door and held the folder against my chest. Words came up slow. "I'm leaving," I said. Grant let out a quiet laugh, like that was what he wanted to hear. Danielle blinked, confused for half a second, then recovered. "Good," she said. "Go cool off." I opened the door and stepped onto the porch. Behind me, their voices dipped into a low murmur again, and then I heard it, her laugh. That same light laugh, like nothing had happened. The key shook in my hand as I locked the door from the outside, even though I didn't know why I bothered. My fingers wouldn't steady. My stomach felt hollow. I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and stared at the house. Nia's bedroom light was on. I stayed there, hands on the wheel, breathing through something I didn't have a name for yet, and my phone buzzed in my pocket with a text from Danielle. I didn't look at it right away. The phone kept buzzing in my pocket, one vibration after another, while I sat in the driveway and stared at my front door like it belonged to somebody else. When I finally looked, Danielle had sent 3 messages. "You're being dramatic. Don't do this in front of Nia. Go sleep at your mom's if you need space." No question about how my mother was doing. No apology. Just instructions, like she was managing a situation she didn't cause. I didn't answer. I started the car instead. A few minutes later, I pulled around to the curb in front of the house and texted Nia. "I'm outside. Take your backpack and come out." She came out fast. Hoodie pulled up even though it wasn't cold. Eyes down, like she didn't want the neighbors to see her. When she slid into the passenger seat, she buckled her seatbelt with both hands. I waited for her to say something. She didn't. The silence sat between us like a third person. I drove toward East Atlanta, past the same streets I'd driven 1,000 mornings. Coffee shops, corner stores, the mural she liked with the bright wings painted on it. Halfway there, her voice came out small. "Dad, who was that last night?" My grip tightened on the steering wheel. I kept my eyes on the road. "A stranger," I said. It sounded wrong even as it left my mouth, but it was the only word that didn't pull her into the middle of it. She nodded once. Her throat moved like she swallowed something she didn't want to swallow. "Is Mom mad at you?" That one landed harder. "Your mom's mad at everybody," I said, trying to make it light, but my voice didn't cooperate. "You don't worry about that." She stared out the window. "Okay," she whispered. At the drop-off line, she hesitated before opening the door. "Dad?" "Yeah, baby." She turned back. "Can you pick me up today?" Something in her tone made my chest go tight again. "I'll be there," I told her. "I promise." She nodded, then got out, shoulder bag bouncing against her hip. walking toward the entrance like she was trying to move through the day without letting it touch her. I watched until she disappeared inside. Then I sat there a second longer than usual before driving off. By the time I reached Midtown, my mind had already split into two tracks. One part of me tried to focus on work, emails, meetings, the steady rhythm of numbers that didn't betray you. The other part kept replaying the living room, Danielle's face, Grant's smirk, Nia's pencil scratching across paper like she was trying to erase herself. I walked into the building, nodded at security, rode the elevator up, and stepped into my office. A couple people looked up, then looked away too quickly. That was new. Around 11, my phone lit up again. Danielle, don't make this ugly. Think about Nia. If you want to act like a man, then handle your responsibilities. I need you to transfer money today. I read it twice, not because it was confusing, but because it was so familiar. She always started with Nia, then slid into demands like she was doing me a favor. I didn't respond. I set the phone face down and opened a spreadsheet. 10 minutes later, another text. Private school tuition is due. She needs a better environment. You know that. Stop being cheap. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so predictable it felt like a script she'd been practicing. Then my phone rang. Her father. I stared at the screen. For a second, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but I already knew what he'd say, and a part of me wanted to hear how fast they'd teamed up. I answered. Hello? His voice came through sharp. Malcolm, what the hell is going on? Ask your daughter, I said. Don't talk to me like that, he snapped. She told us you came in there acting crazy, trying to control her. I leaned back in my chair. Acting crazy, I repeated. That's what she said? She said you embarrassed her. She said you're cold, always have been, he went on, like he'd been holding it in for years. You think you can just walk away and leave her stranded? That's not how this family works. I looked around my office. Glass walls, quiet hum, people pretending they weren't listening. I'm not leaving anyone stranded, I said. I'm leaving a situation. You're leaving your wife, he corrected. She already left, I said. There was a pause. Then his tone shifted into something almost moral. You need to be a man and make things right. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just ended the call. The second I hung up, my email notification chimed. A message from a coworker I didn't talk to much. Hey, you good? Heard you and your wife had a rough night. Heard. That word made my stomach drop, because it meant the story had already started traveling, and I hadn't said a single thing yet. At lunch, I didn't go out. I sat in my office with a protein bar and tried to work, but my phone kept lighting up. A mutual friend texted, "Y'all okay? Danielle seems upset." Another one, "Man, don't let this get messy." Everybody had advice. Nobody had questions. Around 3, I picked Nia up like I promised. She climbed into the car quiet, eyes red like she'd been holding back tears all day. "You okay?" I asked. She shrugged. "Can we go to the community center?" she said. "Ms. Elena said I could stay after class." The community center was where she did art on Wednesdays. Elena Morales ran a small group there, kids who needed a place to breathe. Elena had a way of talking to people without making them feel weak. I drove us there. Nia slipped inside without looking back. I waited in the lobby, watching parents come and go, hearing little kids laugh, feeling like I was outside my own life. Elena stepped out a few minutes later. She held a clipboard, hair pulled back, tired eyes that still paid attention. "Malcolm," she said softly, "you look like you haven't slept." "I've slept," I lied. She didn't call me on it. She nodded toward the empty chairs in the corner. "You want to sit?" I sat. My hands were clasped so tight my knuckles hurt. Elena lowered her voice. "Nia's been quiet today." "Yeah," I said. "She saw something she shouldn't have." Elena waited. "She always did that. She gave you space until you filled it with the truth." I exhaled. "Danielle crossed the line," I said. "A big one." Elena didn't ask what. She didn't need the details to understand the weight. "And you're trying to keep it calm," she said. I looked at her. "I'm trying to keep it from blowing up on my kid." She nodded once, then said the thing that stuck. "You're trying to keep it quiet so you don't have to deal with the mess," she said. "But Malcolm, are you sure you're protecting Nia? Or are you teaching her that when someone disrespects you, you swallow it?" My throat tightened. No answer came out. Elena watched my face, not judging, just steady. Kids learn what love looks like from what we tolerate, she added. They learn what respect looks like from what we allow. I stared at the floor, then at my hands, then out the window where Nia sat at a table painting, her shoulders still tense. My phone buzzed again. Danielle. If you don't send that money by 5, I'm telling everyone what kind of man you really are. I didn't respond. I just slipped the phone back into my pocket and stood up. Elena stayed seated, eyes following me. Where are you going? She asked. To pick up my daughter, I said, and I walked toward the art room, already feeling the weight of the story spreading without me, already sensing how alone it felt to be the only one staying quiet. Nia came out of the art room with paint on her fingers and a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. She held her drawing against her chest like it was armor. Can we get food? She asked. Yeah, I said. Drive-through or diner? Drive-through, she answered fast. So I took her through Chick-fil-A, let her order whatever she wanted, and kept the conversation light. School, her friend Jasmine, the teacher she didn't like. The kind of talk you use to keep a kid from falling apart. Back home, she went straight to her room with her food and closed the door halfway, not all the way. A small detail, but I noticed it. She didn't want to shut me out. She just didn't know how to let me in. I washed my hands at the kitchen sink and checked my work email. A calendar invite sat at the top. Compliance review. Mandatory tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Location, Midtown HQ, Conference Room 12B. No explanation, no notes, just mandatory. I stared at it for a long second, then accepted. The next morning, I dropped Nia off and drove straight into the city. I got to the building early, not because I like being early, but because I hate walking into a room unprepared. Conference Room 12B already had 3 people inside. Our compliance manager, a senior accountant, and someone from legal I'd seen around but never spoken to. They were all polite, in that careful way people get when something's wrong, but nobody wants to say it. Malcolm, the compliance manager said, thanks for coming in. I sat down, set my phone face up on the table, and waited. He slid a folder toward me. We need clarification on a few vendor payments from last quarter, he said. They're tied to your approval chain. My eyes dropped to the paperwork. Names, dates, amounts. At first glance, nothing jumped out. Logistics vendors, routine expenses. Then I saw it, my signature, or something pretending to be. The curve on the M was wrong. The pressure marks didn't match how I write. The line through the L was too straight, too practiced. It looked like someone studied my signature and tried to recreate it from memory. I swallowed once, slow. That's not my signature, I said. The accountant cleared her throat. It matches the signature sample on file, she replied, like she was reading a policy. Matches isn't the same as mine, I said. I didn't sign that. The legal guy leaned forward. Are you saying it's forged? I stared at the page. My head started running through every late night, every rushed document, every time Danielle handed me something at home and said, just sign this, it's for the bills. A cold thought slipped in. What if I did sign something without paying attention? What if my own exhaustion made me careless? I hated that I even considered it. Still, it landed. I'm saying I need to verify it, I answered, because I don't remember approving these. The compliance manager nodded. That's why we're here, he said. There's concern about irregularities. Irregularities. That word is corporate speak for someone's about to get blamed. My stomach tightened, but my voice stayed steady. Give me copies, I said. Everything, the full chain. They exchanged a look, then handed me a stack. It was thick, too thick for something routine. I took it without argument. When the meeting ended, I didn't go back to my office. I went straight to my car, sat behind the wheel, and opened my laptop. First move was simple. I changed every password I controlled. Work, personal, cloud storage. Then I enabled 2-factor authentication on everything that offered it. I wasn't dramatic about it. I just did it. Like locking your door after you realize someone's been inside. Next, I pulled email logs and vendor records. I exported approvals. I downloaded bank statements for the accounts tied to my name. One by one, I saved copies to an external drive. My phone rang while I worked. Danielle. I stared at the screen. My finger hovered over decline. Then I answered, not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted a record. Hello? Her voice came out sweet, almost casual. "Hey, I didn't sleep. We need to talk." "About what?" I asked. "About you leaving like that," she said, then sighed like I was the problem. "You scared Nia. You know she's sensitive." I kept my tone flat. "You scared her," I said, "not me." She paused, then shifted. "Are you going to send that money or not?" There it was. No apology, no accountability, just the ask. "I'm not discussing money with you on the phone," I said. "Oh my God," she snapped. "Here we go. You always do this. You act like you're above it all." I watched the vendor spreadsheet on my screen. My name sat on approvals I didn't recognize. "Danielle," I said, "did you sign anything with my name on it?" Silence hit the line for half a second. Too long. "What are you talking about?" she said quickly. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just let the question sit there. "I'm busy," I added. "We'll talk later." And I ended the call. The external drive clicked softly as another folder transferred. I kept pulling records, stacking proof like bricks, because something about those signatures told me this wasn't just a marriage falling apart. This was someone trying to make sure I went down with it. The first post showed up while I was still pulling records. A friend sent it, no commentary, just a link. Danielle's page, a black and white selfie, eyes glossy, captioned like a sermon. "Some men don't hit you. They punish you with silence. They make you feel crazy for needing love." No name, no details. But everybody who knew us knew exactly who she meant. The comments filled up fast. "Praying for you, sis. You deserve better. Men like that are dangerous." I always knew something was off about him. It hit me in the same place those forged signatures hit. My reputation. The thing I'd built by showing up, staying steady, doing my job clean. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself online. I closed the app and kept working. An hour later, my work email pinged. A message from HR with my name in the subject line and urgent stamped on it. I walked into their office after lunch, folder of vendor reports under my arm, and found my manager sitting there too. He wouldn't meet my eyes. HR spoke in that careful voice. "Malcolm, we received a concerning communication regarding your behavior." "From who?" I asked, even though I already knew. She slid a printed email across the desk, Danielle's name at the top, a long paragraph about emotional instability, unpredictable mood, and fear for her safety. She didn't mention Grant. She didn't mention the living room. She didn't mention the money she demanded. Just painted me as a ticking bomb. HR folded her hands. "For now, we're going to temporarily reassign you from the North Carolina contract. This is procedural. That project was mine. I'd negotiated it, built the compliance framework, earned the client's trust. Losing it wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a stain." I kept my face neutral. "I want that in writing," I said, "and I want a meeting with legal." HR blinked, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Of course," she said. I left with paperwork in my hand, walked back to my office, and shut the door. The vendor spreadsheet was still open on my screen, my fake signature still staring back at me. Danielle wasn't trying to leave quietly. She was trying to break me first. The diner off Monroe Drive stayed open late, the kind of place where nobody cared if you sat in a booth alone with coffee and a half-eaten plate of fries. I picked it because I didn't want to go straight home and walk into whatever version of family Danielle was performing online. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. "You good?" "Man, I saw her post. Don't let her drag you. Call me." I left most of them unread. Every message felt like a hand pulling at a wound they couldn't see. A waitress refilled my mug without asking. I nodded thanks and stared at the steam rising, trying to keep my thoughts organized. Not emotional, organized. Then an email popped up from an address I didn't recognize. No name, no signature line, just one sentence. "Check the vendor payments. Your name is being used." Attached was a small file, a spreadsheet with dates, vendor IDs, and routing numbers. 2 names repeated in the background of the payments, shell companies that didn't belong anywhere near our normal operations. One of them tied back to an LLC registered in Savannah, Grant Holloway Consulting. My jaw tightened. Not anger, something colder, confirmation. I sat there and stared at the screen until the waitress asked if I wanted pie. I shook my head, paid the check, and walked out before I could do something impulsive like drive straight to Danielle's parents' house and start yelling. Instead, I drove to the community center. Elena was finishing up paperwork in her office, the door cracked open. She looked up when I knocked. "It's late," she said, then read my face. "Come in." I sat down without the usual small talk and slid my phone across the desk with the spreadsheet open. "Someone just sent me this," I said. Elena scanned it, then looked at me. "Do you know what it means?" "I know it means my name is being attached to money I didn't move," I answered. "And I know it means this isn't just cheating." Elena leaned back, quiet for a beat. "So what are you going to do?" The question wasn't dramatic. It was practical. It made my chest tighten anyway. "If I push back," I said, "do I become what she's calling me? The unstable guy, the dangerous one." Elena didn't hesitate. "You're not pushing back," she said. "You're putting the truth where it belongs." I stared at her. "That sounds like the same thing." "It's not," she replied. "Revenge is emotion. Truth is structure. You're not trying to hurt her. You're trying to stop her from hurting you." My phone vibrated again. This time it was Nia. "Dad, Mom called me. She said she might not have a place to live soon. Is that true?" I felt my stomach drop. Danielle had gone to my kid. Elena saw my face change. "What?" she asked. I showed her the text. She pressed her lips together, then said quietly, "That's not about survival. That's about control." Outside the office, I could hear kids laughing in the hallway, running past like the world was still normal. Inside, my hands clenched around my phone until my knuckles went pale. I typed back to Nia, "No, baby. You don't worry about that. I'm coming to get you tomorrow like always." Then I opened a new message to my lawyer and attached the spreadsheet. I didn't add a long explanation, just 3 words, "We need action," and I hit send. My lawyer's office sat a few blocks from the Fulton County Courthouse, the kind of building where people walked in carrying folders and walked out carrying consequences. I arrived early and didn't bring coffee. I didn't want anything in my hands except facts. The receptionist recognized me from the first time I'd called. "Mr. Carter, they're ready for you." I followed her into a conference room with a long wooden table and a stack of notepads already set out. 2 attorneys came in, Ms. Patel and a younger guy named Sean. Both of them had the same calm expression people get when they've seen worse than your worst day. Ms. Patel nodded at the file I carried. "Let's start from the beginning," she said. I laid everything out in the order it happened. Not feelings, not opinions. Dates, times, messages, the compliance invite, the vendor approvals, Danielle's posts, the email she sent HR, Naya's text about Mom might not have a place to live. Every piece went onto the table like evidence in a case that still felt unreal to me. Sean opened his laptop and started building a timeline as I spoke. Ms. Patel marked pages with sticky tabs, one after another, without wasting motion. When I finished, she folded her hands. "You said something important on the phone," she said. "You told me you care more about your name than your money." "That's right," I answered. "I can rebuild money. I can't rebuild a reputation once it's labeled." She nodded like she respected that. "Then we focus on protecting your professional standing first," she said. "And we do it using process, not emotion." She slid a legal pad toward me. "This is what we're going to do," she continued. "Step 1. We preserve evidence. That means you stop talking to Danielle on the phone unless you're recording, and you stop signing anything that comes through her." "Already done," I said. "Step 2, she said. "We request your company's full audit trail, email access logs, approval routing, and the vendor onboarding records. We'll send it as a formal legal request." Sean added, "We also bring in an independent forensic accountant, someone outside your company. That way, if this ends up in court, you have neutral verification." I glanced down at the checklist Ms. Patel had started writing. Forensic accounting, defamation documentation, custody safeguard, restraining order if needed, law enforcement referral for forgery and fraud. Seeing it laid out like that did something to my breathing. It didn't make it less painful, but it made it manageable. There was a path. "What about the social media stuff?" I asked. Ms. Patel didn't blink. "You don't respond publicly," she said. "You collect it. Screenshots, dates, engagement, any direct messages. The goal isn't to win an argument. The goal is to show a pattern. Sean tapped his keyboard. "And we file early," he said. "Even if you're not ready to go full force, filing creates timestamps. It prevents her from rewriting the sequence." That was the part I cared about most, making sure the truth had a paper trail before Danielle could spin another story and make it sound like I was reacting out of nowhere. "Do it," I said. Ms. Patel looked at me, steady. "One more thing," she said. "Your daughter. She's being used as leverage. We need to document every time Danielle contacts her to manipulate the situation. Keep it clean. Keep it factual. No commentary." I nodded. The meeting ended with tasks. Not comfort, not sympathy. Tasks. I walked out holding a folder thicker than the one I came in with. On the sidewalk, I paused to check my phone. A text from Danielle sat at the top. "Don't do this, Malcolm. You're going to regret it. I swear you will." I didn't answer. I slipped the phone into my pocket and started toward my car. Halfway down the block, I noticed a black sedan idling near the curb. Tinted windows. Same body style as the one I'd seen at my house. It eased forward when I did. My steps stayed even. I didn't turn around. I didn't break into a run. I just got into my car, locked the doors, and drove off, watching the sedan merge behind me in the rearview mirror like it had all day. At a red light, my laptop chimed from the passenger seat, an email notification. Security alert. New sign-in detected. Unknown device. I stared at the screen, then at the mirror, then back at the road as the light changed, and I kept driving toward Nia's school pickup line with my hands steady on the wheel. The pickup line was backed up all the way around the block, and my phone kept ringing like the world had decided I didn't get a quiet minute anymore. Compliance called twice. Danielle's mother left a voicemail so long it cut off. A random number from Savannah flashed, then disappeared. I ignored all of it and kept my eyes on the school entrance, waiting for Nia to walk out the way she always did, slow, scanning, like she needed to check the air before she stepped into it. Instead, the front office door opened, and a woman in a navy blazer waved me in. "Mr. Carter?" she asked. "The principal needs to see you." My stomach tightened. I parked, followed her down the hallway, and walked into the principal's office where Nia sat in a chair with her hands folded on her lap. Her cheek was red, not bruised, just flushed like she'd been crying and trying to hide it. The principal didn't waste time. "Nia got into a physical altercation," she said. Nia's shoulders rose slightly, then dropped. "With who?" I asked. "Another student," the principal said. "He told her something, she reacted, and she punched him." I looked at Nia. "What did he say?" Her lips pressed together. Tears gathered, but she didn't let them fall. He said my dad is an abuser," she whispered. "He said my mom posted it. He said you're dangerous." The word dangerous hit me like a shove. My chest tightened so hard I had to breathe through it carefully, like controlling a cramp. I leaned forward, voice low. "Did you hit him because you were scared?" I asked. She shook her head. "I hit him because he said it like it was true." That was the moment the whole thing changed for me. Danielle cheating hurt. Danielle lying hurt. The fake signatures terrified me. But my daughter being forced to defend my name with her fists, that broke something open. The principal continued talking about consequences, detention. "Imagine the other parents, you understand." But her words blurred. I kept looking at Nia, the way she kept her chin down like she was already bracing for blame. When we finally walked out, I didn't lecture her. I didn't ask why she didn't tell me sooner. I just put my hand on the back of her hoodie and guided her to the car. She buckled in and stared straight ahead. "I'm sorry," she said, barely audible. "Don't apologize for defending me," I replied, then softened it. "But next time, you come to me. You hear me?" She nodded once. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Danielle's attorney. Petition for modification of custody and parenting time. Attached was a filing accusing me of being emotionally volatile, unfit, and unsafe for a minor child. I sat in the driver's seat with Nia beside me, the engine off, the school parking lot loud around us, and read it twice. Not because I didn't understand it, because I needed to accept that she was willing to use our daughter in court. Nia glanced over. "Dad, are we okay?" I swallowed. "We're okay," I told her. "Go in the house when we get home. Start your homework." The drive back to Decatur felt longer than it should have. At a stoplight, I pulled up the number for Ms. Patel and tapped call. "We need to move," I said the second she picked up. She filed for custody. Send it to me, she replied. Right now. When we got home, Nia went inside without a word. I stayed in the car, forwarded the email, then signed the engagement letter Ms. Patel had already drafted and sent earlier that morning. My hands didn't shake. The last signature I'd ever let be questioned was going to be my own. Nia sat at the kitchen table with her homework spread out, chewing the end of her pencil like it might calm her down. I stayed nearby, not hovering, just present, wiping counters that were already clean, folding laundry that didn't need folding yet, moving around so she could feel me without me crowding her. My phone buzzed once, then again. Ms. Patel. I stepped into the hallway and answered. We got the preliminary report, she said. From the forensic accountant? I asked. Yes. And Malcolm, it connects. That word, connects, didn't scare me the way it should have. It almost relieved me. Ambiguity had been eating me alive. A clean line felt like oxygen. Email it, I said. I'm at home. Already sent, she replied. Read it tonight. Don't call Danielle. Don't respond to anything. I hung up, went back to the kitchen, and waited until Nia was focused again. Then I opened my laptop. The report wasn't long, but every line carried weight. The forensic accountant had traced a set of payments through a secondary vendor that didn't fit our usual process. The vendor was registered in Georgia, formed within the last year, no real business footprint, no website, no operating history, and the payee trail landed on one name, Grant Holloway. Not directly at first, through an LLC, then a personal account, then a transfer to a credit card in his name. But the pattern was obvious. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. The report included the approval chain, too. My name sat at the top, stamped as the approver on every payment. My signature. I stared at the page for a long time. Not because I didn't understand it, because I understood it too well. This wasn't Danielle making a messy exit. This was Danielle and Grant making sure I took the fall while they collected what they could. I closed my laptop and stood up, then walked to the living room window and looked out at the street. A neighbor jogged by with a dog. Somebody's porch light flickered. Regular life kept moving. My phone buzzed again. Danielle, you're really doing this? You're going to ruin us. What kind of man destroys his own family? I didn't answer. I took screenshots, saved them in a folder labeled custody, and put the phone back down. A few minutes later, another message arrived, this time from Grant. Bro, let it go. You don't own her. Be a man and move on. I stared at his text and felt something close to disgust, but it didn't spike into anger. It stayed controlled, contained, the way you feel when you step in something dirty and immediately want to wipe it off before it spreads. I forwarded the message to Ms. Patel without responding. Then I opened my email again and started checking the audit trail myself. One by one, I requested what I could from IT through formal channels, IP logs, login activity, device history. I didn't use any emotional language. I wrote like it was a standard compliance inquiry, short sentences, clear scope, dates included. When I pulled my own email access records, another detail jumped out. Multiple logins had happened during hours I was either at Grady with my mother or driving Nia to school. Different location, different device, same account. The kind of evidence you don't argue with. I sent it to Ms. Patel and Sean. Then I created a separate folder on an external drive and saved everything. Posts, comments, emails, vendor approvals, bank trails, custody filing, Grant's text. Each file named with the date. No shortcuts, no missing links. Back in the kitchen, Nia looked up. Dad? She asked. Why are you on your laptop so much? I walked over and knelt beside her chair. I'm fixing something, I said. Not the kind you can see, but it matters. She studied my face like she was trying to decide if she believed me. Are we moving? She asked. Not yet, I said, but we're going to be okay. She nodded slowly, then went back to her work. I stood up, washed my hands, and opened a message to Ms. Patel. I want the defamation case filed, and I want a criminal referral for forgery. No extra explanation, just direction. Before I hit send, my phone buzzed again with Danielle's name. Another attempt to pull me into her noise. I left it on the counter and sent the email instead. The drive to Savannah took a little over 4 hours, depending on traffic. I left before sunrise, not because I wanted the extra time, but because I didn't want to rush and give myself room to overthink. Nia stayed with my mother for the weekend. I told her I had work travel. She didn't ask questions. Kids can sense when a truth is too heavy to carry. In the passenger seat sat a plain manila envelope and a small USB drive in a plastic sleeve. Nothing dramatic. No letters, no speeches printed out. Just paperwork, filings with stamps, preservation requests, and a timeline that didn't care who cried first. Savannah was already busy when I arrived. Tourists on sidewalks, couples taking pictures. I parked behind the venue, turned off the engine, and sat for a minute with my hands resting on the steering wheel. Not praying, not trying to calm myself down, just settling into the choice I'd already made. Inside, the wedding looked like money. White florals, hired staff, people dressed like they'd been waiting all year for a reason to post a picture. Danielle loved that kind of setting. She loved being seen. I didn't come in through the main entrance. I walked around, entered through a side door, and took a seat near the back. Nobody checked for my name. Nobody recognized me. Half the room had probably only heard my name through Danielle's version of me. Grant stood near the bar, laughing with a group of men, holding court like a guy who'd just won something. Danielle floated between tables, hugging people, letting them tell her how beautiful she looked. When her eyes finally landed on me, the smile didn't leave her face, but her body stiffened. For a second, she looked like she might walk over. Then she stopped herself, like she didn't want to give me that much attention. I waited, not for courage, for timing. The MC tapped the microphone and announced speeches. Parents, friends, the usual. People clinked glasses. Someone shouted, "Woo!" like this was a party, not a promise. Then the MC said, "If anyone has a special message for the couple." I stood up and walked forward. The MC looked at me, uncertain. I leaned in just enough. 60 seconds, I said. That's all. He hesitated, then handed me the mic. The room quieted in that slow way crowds do when they realize something unexpected is happening. Danielle took a step toward the stage. Grant's smile faded. I held the mic steady and kept my voice even. "Good evening. I won't take long." A few people nodded like they appreciated manners. "My name is Malcolm Carter. I'm Danielle's ex-husband." The air shifted, heads turned, chairs creaked. A woman near the front covered her mouth. Danielle's eyes widened just slightly, like she was calculating damage. I continued, "I'm not here to disrupt your celebration. I'm here to deliver something she asked for during the divorce." I set the manila envelope on the table in front of Danielle and Grant. Grant stared at it like it might bite him. "Inside are copies of filings that have already been submitted," I said. "They include a request to preserve evidence connected to vendor payments, forged approvals, and false statements made about me." Danielle's face tightened. Grant took a half step back, like distance could protect him. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse them with emotion. I gave the room facts and let the weight do what it does. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't have to look. I already knew who it was. Ms. Patel said she'd call at exactly this time. I pulled the phone out, answered, and put it on speaker. "Malcolm," she said, calm as ever. "We have confirmation. The temporary restraint and account freeze has been granted. Also, we have a scheduled interview with investigators on Monday morning. Do not engage with either party outside of counsel." Every word landed in the room like a dropped plate. Danielle's knees buckled slightly. Grant's jaw clenched hard enough to show muscle. I ended the call, looked at them both, and said the only sentence that mattered. "I'm not here to ruin your wedding. I'm here to stop you from using my name as a tool." I placed the mic back in the stand. No extra commentary. No final line to make people clap. I walked away while the room exploded into whispers behind me, the kind of whispers you can't take back. Outside, the air felt the same as when I walked in. Cars passed. A bartender stepped out for a smoke. Life kept moving like nothing happened. I got into my car, put the envelope copy on the passenger seat, and started the engine as my phone began buzzing again, call after call, without checking who it was. My phone didn't stop ringing on the drive back to Atlanta. Danielle called first, then her mother, then numbers I didn't recognize. Grant sent 2 texts in a row, both short, both stupid. "You're a bitter man. You really did all this at a wedding?" I didn't answer any of it. I drove, stopped for gas, bought a coffee I didn't drink, and kept my hands on the wheel until the skyline came back into view. By Monday, everything moved into rooms where feelings didn't matter. Fulton County, conference tables, court clerks, legal pads, my lawyer sliding documents toward me and pointing at lines like we were building a wall, brick by brick. Compliance at my job ran their own internal process. My manager sat with me in the legal team, and for the first time in weeks, he met my eyes. "We pulled the access logs," he said. "The sign-ins weren't yours." I nodded once, like I expected it, even though part of me had been bracing for betrayal. The forensic accountant's report backed it up. The vendor trail matched the LLC filings. The signature analysis came back with a simple conclusion: inconsistent pressure patterns, inconsistent stroke order, high likelihood of forgery. Nothing poetic about it, just the truth in a format courts understand. Danielle showed up to one of the hearings with swollen eyes and a pastor's voice, talking about stress and misunderstandings. She tried to bring Nia into it again, claiming I was unstable. My attorney didn't react to any of it. She asked for evidence. There wasn't any. Grant didn't show up the first time. His lawyer did, with excuses about scheduling and business travel. A week later, the investigator assigned to the case requested his financial records. That's when things started to crack. Contracts got pulled. A real estate deal he'd been bragging about fell apart. An employer he'd listed as a reference called me by mistake and asked if I knew where he'd gone. Danielle's social media posts slowed down, then stopped. The comments section that used to be full of "stay strong" turned into a quiet graveyard. People don't like standing too close to a lie once it's been named. The custody petition didn't go anywhere. In fact, it backfired. The judge saw the screenshots, the late-night texts, the way she used Nia as leverage. My attorney didn't need dramatic arguments. The pattern spoke for itself. At home, the changes showed up in small ways. Nia stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes. She started eating breakfast again. One night I heard her laugh at a show in her room, and the sound hit me so hard I stood in the hallway and listened like it was something rare. A month later, I moved us out of that house in Decatur. Not because I couldn't afford it, because every corner carried a memory I didn't want to live inside. We found a smaller place in a quieter neighborhood, still close enough to her school. I changed my number. I rerouted mail through a P.O. box. I blocked every path Danielle had used to reach me. Messages still came through for a while, from new numbers, new accounts, fake apologies wrapped around blame. I didn't reply. Some people think silence is weakness. They don't understand the kind of silence it takes to stop engaging with someone who feeds off your attention. On a Saturday afternoon, I took Nia to Piedmont Park. She ran toward the playground like she was younger than 12, like her body finally remembered it was allowed to be a kid. I sat on a bench with a bottle of water, watching her climb and jump and argue with other kids about rules that didn't matter. My phone stayed in my pocket. No calls, no texts, no threats. Just a normal afternoon. When Nia waved at me from the top of the play structure, I lifted my hand back without thinking, then stood up to meet her at the bottom when she came down.